Good evening, my downline darlings. How are you faring this evening? I think some of you are still sleeping. How are you faring? All right then. Let us be giving you some information at the moment on the idea that has been called in my world the 5 levels of mastery. This is a process, this is a training, this is a system that has been developed over hundreds of years of your counting, us being upline 700 of your years. That which you call your future on your own world, and me being in the Emerald Isle. The idea of the 5 levels of mastery involves the training that allows an initiate to become that which is known as a cryptic, a nocturnal, a shapeshifter, a sage, and finally, should one be kenning to go in that direction, a wraith. The idea is represented by different symbols, and we will be explaining what each level may mean. The first level of the cryptic is represented by the symbol of a triangle, which represents the idea of the earth. And the cryptic's training will allow the being to make the connections necessary to ground oneself in the earth plane. For you see, getting in touch and learning to communicate with the trees, with the rocks, with the animals, with the sea and the sky, and all these things of your physical reality will allow you to remain grounded when dealing with the other levels. If you did not go through the phase of becoming a cryptic, which allows you to understand how to communicate with those things of your own reality, of your own world, before you go shooting off into other dimensions, then it would be like a strong wind rushing at you and you having no roots. It would overturn you and uproot you. So by grounding yourself and having deep roots, you stay firm and connected to the earth while you're out exploring the ideas later on in the other levels of other dimensions and other energies and parallel realities. So the idea of the cryptic is to form an ability to communicate and commune with all these life forms on your planet, to really anchor yourself into the physical reality and become truly expressive as a part of nature, so that you can extend your senses and hear the stories of the trees and the stories of the brooks and the stories of the rocks and the stories of the birds and all these things that form a rich tapestry of the world as you may know it. Going through that training will involve many different kinds of things, including the idea of the use of a substance that we have termed divinorum. Now, the idea is it opens up your senses and allows you to really begin to relate to these other life forms by allowing it to be a little bit easier to shift your frequency. It is specially designed and brewed by divinorum masters. My master being that you know as a Sasquatch named of Argus. And in taking the divinorum and opening up those realms and those windows to the nature of nature, you allow yourself to connect not only with the trees and the rocks and the birds and the bees, but also with those beings you would call the elementals, which we will be talking about tomorrow of your time. But the idea is that in coming to your world 700 years ago, from my perspective, downline we call it, the idea is that the hybrids with their extended senses began to perceive that there were these elemental beings that many humans could not see, and we began to develop relationships with them, and in developing those relationships, they taught us many things about how to connect to nature in similar ways to them, how to understand that we were part of nature, as you all are. When you then go beyond the level of the cryptic, and you begin your journey into the level called the nocturnal, the idea is now you have established and grounded yourself in this one reality, or what you consider to be one reality. Of course, many of you now know it is a series of parallels, but we are now talking about the idea of the timeline that you consider to be your own. But when you go beyond that and you have connected to that, you can begin to explore the idea and sense the idea of other parallel realities that coexist simultaneously with you all. In exploring those parallel realities and becoming a nocturnal and understanding the secrets of the night and those that reveal themselves in the cool moonlight, you begin to pick up information and knowledge about different parallel realities, different parallel reality versions even of yourselves. And you can call upon that information in those parallel worlds, and you can download it into your world and apply it in your reality. It is a rich tapestry of information that you can call upon when you arrive on the level of the nocturnal. Now, going from that level of recognizing the idea of your connection to nature in terms of the parallel realities and the information that you're able to download with those awarenesses and those connections, you can move to the next level in your training, which is the shapeshifter. Something that people on your planet don't quite understand, even though you may know the concept of the shapeshifter, is that there is actually no shifting of your shape in terms of the idea of chemistry and molecules and things like that. That's not the way it works. Once you have established, as a nocturnal, some connection to these parallel realities and different versions of your own being, the shapeshifter has then developed the opportunity and the ability to call upon those shapes of alternate selves and alternate presentations from parallel realities and create the presentment of them in their own reality. They are not actually in any way, shape, or form altering their own molecular structure per se, but they are taking on the persona to the degree that they need to of other parallel versions of their own being and presenting those to those who are in the reality in which they are anchored. So they are really becoming a literal reflection of different parallel reality individuals. And that is why they can also take the shapes of the trees and the rocks and the birds and the bees, because again, they are just different angles of different reflections of us all. Moving on to the idea then from shape-shifting to the sage. Now the sage can not only call upon the idea of changing their own identity and presenting it to those around them in the way of the shapeshifter, but can actually call upon the reality itself and change the reality around them to be representative of another parallel reality to the degree that others can sense this and perceive and experience this. And you would call this wizardry and witchcraft and magic, but it is simply the idea of identifying so strongly with another parallel reality that they can allow others to match a frequency very easily where they can actually see that parallel reality and so appear to be conjuring objects, changing physical objects within their reality. But no such thing is going on in the way that you typically think of it. It is again that they are allowing an object that already exists simultaneously, right here, right now, from another parallel reality to appear before your eyes and take the place of what was there before in the reality that you're used to. When you go from the sage into the level of the wraith, which sometimes can be quite challenging for many individuals, and very, very few people will do this. It is a very rare thing for those sages to become wraiths. For there are different kinds of ideas that can occur, that can happen, that can take you a little bit off course and be very challenging. But those that can understand how to achieve the balance between the sage and the wraith will understand that now they have tapped in to all these parallel realities that you would consider to be physical in a similar manner to your own, are now stretching and bridging themselves between the physical and the non-physical, between the world of matter and the world of spirit. And they can actually cause changes in the spiritual reality that can appear in certain ways upon the earth and can function very similarly to the idea of what the Bashar has described of his world in terms of actually being quasi-physical, bridging those two realities and exhibiting many of the attributes of spirit while still remaining connected to the physical realm. They can make adjustments in the template level reality that exists in the spirit realm and cause great changes to occur in the physical world around them and in many other parallel realities. They can extend their abilities into other parallel realities, visit those other parallel realities, cause changes in those other parallel realities in addition to their own, because now they are coming from the level of spirit that bridges all of those parallel realities. So these are the 5 levels of mastery. And as we said, the first level, the cryptics, is represented by the idea of the triangle, which represents the earth. Then you have the idea of the nocturnal, which is represented by a wavy line, which represents the sea. Then you have the idea of the shape shifter, which is represented by an arch, or an arc, as you may term it, which represents the sky and the changing weather patterns. Then you have the idea of the sage, which is represented by the idea of the circle, or space as you would have it, the void, out of which all things come. Then you have the idea of the wraith, which is represented by the dot, which is the idea of the center and source, which is spirit. So you have the earth, and you have the sea, and you have the sky, and you have space, and you have spirit. And those are the 5 symbols that represent the different levels, the 5 levels of mastery. Are you all somewhat kenning what we are saying to you? Yeah. All right. Now, there will be, at the end of the transmission, the idea during your holotrope meditation of a meditation that will help take you through some of the idea of crystallizing this concept of the 5 levels within you. We didn't expect all of you to become masters tonight, but we understand that we can plant the seed within you so that you may decide for yourselves which ideas will work best for you and how to initiate yourselves and become your own apprentice to begin to grow this seed. Begin to find a way and a path that works for you in your own mastery of self and in your connection to your own nature and your connection to the infinite. So if you will be joining us on that journey, we will be very happy to begin your initiation that way during your holotrope meditation, taking you through those 5 levels on a cursory level. So be it, but nevertheless planting that seed that you can water and you can grow by shining the light of your own inner light upon it. Now then, we will, as has been suggested, sort of, as you say in your language downline, hang around with you for a little while. And we will be answering some of your questions and having dialogues with you if you wish. So if you would, you may begin to do that if it pleases you.
Hi, beautiful.
Well, you're not even seeing me, but you got that right.
Thank you.
So good on you.
I respect that you feel beautiful, and that is enough.
All right then, you're well on your way.
Can I please ask about when you mentioned the concept of Divinorum?
Divinorum.
Divinorum?
Yes.
Is that concept set up in your mind, or is that symbol reflection set up in your mind as a tool just to shift you quicker to the state of being of connecting to the nature consciousness around you, like the rocks and...
It is from nature itself.
Okay.
You have similar teachers in your world that are the plants that grow naturally for this purpose, but only under the guidance of a Divinorum master will it allow you to really navigate in the way that it is intended. For the brewing of the Divinorum is an art, and it contains many abilities. It can be brewed in ways to give you very specific experiences and teachings. It can be brewed in a way to give you a very broad and general understanding of experience, depending upon what it is you seek. So it requires a Divinorum master to be the one brewing and taking you down that road on your journey.
At the same time, did you have you tried the experience of Divinorum?
Yes, you're not kenning what I am saying to you. In order for me to achieve the level I have achieved as an initiate back before I became a cryptic, you have to start that journey with your Divinorum ritual. So I have had the Divinorum experience and ritual many times at different levels as I go through my journey on the 5 levels of mastery.
Okay, yeah. And I was going to ask specifically can you hit that state of being of those specific circumstances that you said without even using Divinorum at all and using a different tool altogether?
You can use whatever tool will work for you in the way that the Bashar has told you about the permission slips, but understanding that this is our way, and this is the way that works 700 years upline for the hybrids in the way that they have created the reality in which they now experience themselves.
Oh, fantastic.
Because it is a connection from nature to nature. It is that which allows you to experience more readily in a variety of ways that which is the teacher within.
That sounds exciting.
It is. Or we would not be doing it.
Oh, yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be held to be reasonable for once, because there have been many along my life journey that thought I was out of my mind.
Oh, and that's valid to be out of your mind in your spirit?
Well, on that we agree.
I was going to ask, you were talking about these 5 levels, and in any given level is not the entire reality contained within you. So if you're talking about a nocturne or shapeshifter or anything like that, are you only going to resonate with, from that spirit level, with consciousness that has a belief system that is lined up to see those manifestations?
Of course, that's the way it works, but still there is the enjoyment of the process. For it creates an enrichment within you that allows for a deeper appreciation of what it is you go through, because that is the point of life.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yes.
So the process is the point.
Absolutely.
Because right now I've been feeling like I've just wanted to be at point X and not have a process about it. Or
Point X,
oh yeah,
is that a particular location in your world?
probably, but also I was analogically using it as a state of being that I've desired to have, but I haven't. Like I've just felt like that snapshot. Or
What's a snapshot?
probably not what I'm referring to it to be by saying a snapshot's a photograph thing, or it could be, I don't know.
We're talking about a representation.
A
symbol.
representation. Yeah, so in my imagination, I imagine a reality where there are things, and then in my reality, there are different things.
All right, but I have a question.
Thank you, yeah.
Where else but within your imagination would you be imagining things?
Where else within my imagination would I be imagining things?
You said in my imagination, I imagine. Well, I
so
would
everything
assume
is
that to be
imagination.
the case, yes.
Oh, so you're saying so more holistic.
Yes.
Okay, thanks for that correction.
Because really this is all your imagination.
Okay, yeah, I ken you, as you say.
Well, thank you for kenning that.
That's awesome. Or whatever Bashar says about awe.
All right, well, we understand.
Um,
He's explaining some things to us as we go along.
oh, cool.
Because we have different ways of seeing and different ways of doing and different ways of thinking applying from you. So he's acting as a little bit of a translator.
All right. So how is so you've got completely different, or not completely, I mean everything's completely different but similar in its different ways, but
There are some things that are very similar and things that you would recognize should you transport yourself to our time. There are many things that are very different that you wouldn't understand what you were looking at.
okay, yeah. And so the consciousness that is my human consciousness doesn't have a symbolic representation of it to interpret back into my physical experience while I'm contained within that physical experience. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think I'm saying what you just said, because what you just said makes no sense.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have to review what sense I was attempting to make.
All right. We'll let you
But
go
that's
off
later.
and do that then.
Okay, well, thank you very much for chatting with me today.
Well, thank you.
Whatever time it is now. Yeah, now. Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Evening to you then.
I guess my question has to do with balancing the heart and the mind.
Yes.
The personality that I seem to have given myself is one that's inclined to I guess, the mental space, the cerebral space, and I find it very challenging to...
I'll be letting the Bashar handle this one if you don't mind.
All right.
All right, please proceed.
Thank you.
You're talking about the heart and the mind and the balance between the two.
Yes.
Yes. Well, you understand you have your higher mind.
Yes.
And you understand that it sends through the mind, through the physical mind, to the heart, which then acts